The bolts are bolted to an embedment ring which goes in the very bottom, and then the top of the bolts are bolted to a template that holds them in place until the concrete solidifies, and then the template is lifted off. So the template matches the exact hole spacing and diameter that the bottom of the tower has.
Jay Gitlison was the general contractor for the project, and of course he worked very closely with Wes Clark from EWT, who was representing the manufacturer of the turbine. Without their assistance, this project wouldn't have went so smoothly. Actually, Jay is the same contractor who worked on the Illinois Rural Electric Cooperative site at Pittsfield. He actually was the general contractor in charge of installing the 1.65 megawatt Vestas unit that cooperative put up. In all, Jay has completed close to 400 to 500 turbines throughout his lifetime. He's very knowledgeable, had complete faith in him that he knew what he was doing on the GobNob site. But they did a great job to make sure that all the parties worked very closely together, and of course safety was a big concern from day one. We wanted to make sure that there were no accidents during the construction, and we did not have any accidents, and we're all thankful for that.
I believe that the concrete came from Raymond, Illinois, so we do have one thing in it from Raymond, or from Illinois.
After watching the foundation being completed, I have complete faith that it's not going anywhere. There's a lot of concrete in that foundation. When all of the components, the bases of the tower, the blades, the nacelle, the generator started rolling in, and especially when the cranes came in, the folks in Farmersville had a lot of action because they had trucks lined up on Mine Avenue all the way from Interstate up to where they turn in to go to the GobNob site. EWT is a very popular turbine brand, even though it's new here in the United States. The key thing that attracted us to the EWT turbine was it's what they call a direct drive turbine. It doesn't have a gearbox up at the top. The blades actually turn the generator on our turbine. So we're hoping in the long term that's going to cut down on maintenance expenses, and that's one reason the board was really excited about using the EWT technology and having a direct drive turbine.
We do have a couple of American-made parts, but most of them came from all over the world, and they all came together at the first time right at our site there. And it's kind of amazing that when we started erecting the thing, everything seemed to fit together. So the template matches the exact hole spacing and diameter that the bottom of the tower has. So when we dropped that on there, there was a little bit of a fine-tuning adjustment with a small sledgehammer, but things went pretty well. I happened to be watching the crane operator and watching his scale in the crane on how much weight was on the particular base tower section whenever they were doing that. And when they'd bump it a little bit, you could see it change about 2,000 pounds of pressure whenever they'd pop it a little bit. But there was really very little resistance to that, so it went together quite well. And we were certainly reminded of why we picked that spot to put a wind turbine. It was very windy. Matter of fact, we had to postpone a couple of times making some lifts to get the wind to die down enough. So it's kind of ironic that we want the wind to blow, but at that particular point in time we couldn't get it to stop blowing. Seeing the generator itself assembled, it came without a bearing in it, so they had to take it apart and put the bearing in it and then reassemble it.
And I've never seen a bearing that large in my life, and it was just a great big round thing that they lifted up with these cranes and put in there, and it it was like fit in with the glove. They actually had pieces of cards around the edge. That's how tight that bearing fit in there. It was just amazing. And then to have the crane raise and put these sections, they'd raise them on top and set them down in there, and guys were up there bolting them together. It was really, really an interesting thing to see as they put this together. But I might add, it was pretty cold too.
In Illinois, there are a lot of old coal mining sites that have become eyesores. And with a lot of meetings with the DNR and emails and phone calls, we were able to work with them to erect this wind turbine there to make a green site out of a brown site. And that's a wonderful thing. The biggest thing I noticed was how everything went together so perfectly. Everybody worked well with everybody else. Everybody knew what they were doing. There was perfect coordination. And it's just amazing to me how such a huge wind turbine can be put in place by 10 people. In today's economy, where electricity costs are rising continually, our costs for generating electricity with that wind turbine are going to stay the same. Basically, when the blades are turning, we're powering everyone that's on the substation in Farmersville. That's a lot of homes, and that's wonderful.
Most of the turbine was erected during daylight hours, but the wind speeds can only be a certain mile per hour. If it's over, I believe, 12 miles per hour, they're not able to do any of the lifts.
And it was down pretty close to zero conditions there, zero temperature, and the wind was blowing several times in the 10 to 15 miles an hour, pretty steady with gusts up to 25. So that was a very cold week that we spent up there.
You want a windy spot, but yet you've got to have no wind in order to put it up. Was a bit of a troublesome part of the project. But they was able to make sure that that come along and that everything went well. We had a shack up there for people to get in out of the weather. That was kind of referred to as the director's shack. There was a lot of directors that went over there and spent a lot of time, just eager participants in the activities of what the GobNob project was about, and there was constant updates on what was going on.